This is episode number 149 of the Cozy Corner of Cinema, being recorded on Tuesday, February 4th, 2025 at 8:23 p.m. The nights are still cold, but they're getting a wee bit more bearable. There are some nights, if you happen to be caught out when the sun is down, and you just feel that frigidness in the air where you are just eager to get inside, whether that be inside your home, a building, your car to turn on the heat, anywhere that will provide the warmth that the outside cannot currently give. But winter is a wonderful time nonetheless. It is wonderful to get all of our tasks done, to stay in, to work on our art, our film watching, our writing, and really focus in on a way where the cold sort of lets us stay inside and say, hey, man, do you really want to go out there, scrape ice off your car, put on a heavy jacket, sit in the car and wait for it to heat up, go out there, hopefully there's no ice on the road. What are you going to do when you're going to go out? You got to do something productive, or you got to go, dilly dally. And whatever you choose to do, that's your prerogative. That's your life to do so with, do so forth. But me, man, I'm staying inside. I'm staying here. It's too much to watch. It's too much to read. There's too much to write. Too much isn't the correct wording. I said not enough. Or, no, no, actually, that's even worse than what I said before. There's so much to take in. Not enough. That's insane. There's no way you're going to watch every film, read every book, write everything you ever wanted to write. It's not going to happen, man. But if we fill our days with art, we fill them with joy, we surround ourselves with people whom will enrich our lives and will enhance it, and not solely in a what can you provide me in a physical sense, but more so in a comfort sense. The people whom we hold closest to us very dearly are the ones who will enhance our lives, and to separate ourselves from the people who are just going to bring us down, man. Who are, you meet plenty of people like that. There's no goals, there's no ambitions, man. It's just day to day, get to the end of the work week, sit in front of the TV, and if that's what you want to do, man, that ain't nothing I can say that should deter you from that. Obviously enjoy whatever it is you want to do, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else. But you shouldn't have to kind of succumb to the social kind of milieu of expectations and of pressure or peer pressure. You just can't fall into the vortex that is that, or else it's just gonna totally just suck away your life and your time, and then you're gonna wake up one day and go, "What happened to it all, man?" We got to use our time wisely. Got to focus on whatever it is we need to focus on, staying steadfast at the task at hand. But anyways, man, we're gonna talk about a couple of documentaries here. A couple brief documentaries. I should say briefly talk about some documentaries. And I also want to say to anyone to people who were listening in to the last episode, all about the Best Picture nominations. Thank you. It was an arduous task to record, getting in all those thoughts, and there's just no way it's going to happen in under a half hour. I wasn't going to rush with some of these thoughts. In previous years, I've been able to do it, but with the 9 films I had seen, I had some to say more than others, but overall, I didn't want to rush my thoughts or be limited by a artificial sort of time limit when ultimately I have the free reign. But I feel like a half hour is a good general kind of place to listen to, getting in the information and not rambling on for too long. But in that case, it just because there were 9 films that had to be talked about, it had to be done. Regardless, I didn't feel it right to rush through them. And I still have one more to see, and that will be seen on Friday. So perhaps next time I will come back and discuss that film in question. But a couple of documentaries to talk about. I'll talk about them in chronological order, and they're all not very long, which is good. At least not too terribly lengthy. This first one is 75 minutes from 2004. The documentary, written and directed by Celestia Davis, is called Awful Normal. and it was one that I had been unfamiliar with, but it was intriguing enough. We basically follow two of these members of this family, Celesta and Karen, and basically the film is a complicated look, a possibly cathartic look at the sexual trauma committed by, I think it's been a couple of weeks since I've seen this, so I do apologize. I'm going solely off memory here. But I believe it was their father's friend who did this, or maybe it was the father himself. But what the a lot of the film is these people sort of using this documentary form as an outlet to put this trauma behind them. I mean, when it comes to something like this, it'd be troubling to bury it completely. I feel like any sort of traumatic event like this would be enough to permanently leave a scar on someone's life. But the way they look at it is a way to reconcile with these horrible acts committed to them. And what's interesting is that where the documentary leads to is far more complicated and far more nuanced, without kind of going into any sort of spoiler, not even spoiler, but I think a big part of the film is the second half. Yeah, probably the second half, I would say. I was trying to think whether it was less than that, but I think that's definitely a first and a second half to this tale. And the issues that come along with the complexities of a person. In the case of a documentary, it's not as black and white, and it's not as simple as maybe quite what a traditional narrative would have in a resolution of this. And I don't really want to say much about the second half because I think that, and when I say that, it's not some crazy thing where it's like, whoa, this new plot twist, new plot reveal. No, it's more so about where this story leads to because they're trying to get in contact with the man who had sexually abused them. And whether or not they do or don't find him, I would it's best left to your viewing. Also, I have to say, in the midst of this talk, the Sprite is absolutely delicious. I haven't had a Sprite in a long time, and I don't want coffee right now. But boy, oh boy, I don't have a lot of cola. This is one delicious Sprite. But with that said, it's a really well put together documentary. It's very very low key. I mean, to the point where there's not even really a whole lot of editing in it besides a traditional, cutting between scenes. It's very low key. Like the audio mixing is really a bit tough. I read a couple reviews. People said they had issues hearing the audio at times. I didn't quite have that issue. Perhaps it's because I was watching, or should I say, listening with earbuds. But it will be a tricky documentary for some people. I think some. I was kind of curious because there really isn't a lot of discussion on the film online. So I did, out of curiosity, just look up a couple of user reviews on Letterboxd and on IMDb, and it seemed to be a pretty split response in terms of uh, some people said the point of the documentary, which I don't necessarily agree with. This is definitely some sort of cathartic matter, a cathartic way of dealing with this horrific crime, but for both these girls. And some people said that they had issues with where the film goes to, but I think that more so kind of falls in line with an issue of this being a tricky kind of situation where they're not. I really want to be very careful about how I phrase these words without giving anything, revealing anything, but sort of just was something that's maybe easier said than done in terms of expectations. It's tricky. It's a complicated story. It's a complicated saga. I mean, this Celesta Davis. very vulnerable on on camera. This is the she. I mean, looking at her, I think this is really kind of the only thing that she's done. She's done a couple of acted in a couple of things, but this was kind of. So I really don't know much about her. I don't really know if this was just a one-off to make this documentary and then did had no other interest in the film business. I don't know, because even Ellen Davis in the film as well. I forgot who the mother was. I don't know if it was Ellen or if it was Karen. Uh, yeah, I'm sorry, Ellen or yes, Karen. I don't remember which was the sister, but it looks like it was just that amongst the three of them, besides Celeste being involved with a couple of acting gigs. But very interesting, very low key and contemplative documentary, very under the radar. It is on Tubi. That is how I watched it. I would, and what I'm talking about with these documentaries, they're short too. I mean, under 80 minutes, except for the last one I'm going to talk about, which is a little over. Um, that one is a little over 90 minutes, so not and all three of these aren't terribly long. Um, but a good documentary nonetheless. And then the next one I will talk about is even shorter than that, and IMDb lists it at an hour and 1 minute. But I think when the credits came up, it may have been 58 minutes from my memory. Written and directed by, let me get the name up here because I want to see if he has done anything else. By Sean Donnelly, who has, looks like, done a lot of animation for a number of different projects. He's also directed some episodes of some TV series, which he may have created, I'm not actually sure, called Jeff and Some Aliens and Trip Tank Buddocks. I'm talking about this documentary from 2008 I've known for a long time. It's called I Think We're Alone Now. And this is one, yeah, I remember hearing about it a long, 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 long time ago. Probably heard about it, honestly, back in 2008, and I'm just now seeing it. Uh, Fascinating documentary. There's a lot of words that can be used to describe the documentary. Strange, uncomfortable, offbeat. It followed these two mega fans of the pop singer Tiffany, who has a famous song, I Think We're Alone Now. We follow, what's his name? Jeff Turner, who has a restraining order against him from Tiffany. He is very obsessed to the point where, possible delusion of saying that they're best friends and that he is happy that his name is alongside Tiffany's, even if it is on a restraining order. He's just a super mega fan, just extremely knowledgeable. We also follow a another fan, Kelly McCormick, who is obsessed in her own way. She is a hermaphrodite, as well as maybe not quite in the same level of delusion as Jeff, but is still very obsessed. And we follow these two strangers who have this mutual interest, and I really love documentaries like this. That, for one, when you're dealing with these offbeat kind of people, the best thing you can do is look at it in a non-narrative, and when I say narrative, I mean literally a narration manner, because I think it's very easy for a really shallow kind of narration on footage that the audience themselves can interpret as they will. And we don't need a documentarian to tell us how to feel. There's a famous documentary that I've always had an issue with. And I haven't seen it in quite some years, so I'd be open to rewatch. But I'd always had a problem with, because it was this great footage, and then you have this narrator who is constantly theorizing and is constantly, well, perhaps it's this, and I'm like, man, this isn't even like a Mondo movie where you just gotta put in filler, man. This is like an acclaimed documentary that I just cannot get behind. And this film doesn't do that. I'm reminded of other films that I like more, but are in sort of the same vein of following these offbeat sort of people, both of which I've talked about on the show previously, which are Love and Saucers as well as A Life on the Farm. Like those two films, especially Love and Saucers, are two that I still feel like are not being quite in the general sort of discussion, at least in terms of contemporary documentaries. I think, especially Love and Saucers, especially, I find an incredibly endearing and heartfelt look into, in that case, a man who confidently believes that he had multiple sexual encounters with aliens, and in that case, it's not about whether or not the audience believes. It's the fact of the matter is that he believes, and that's all that really counts here. Um, but all three of these documentaries are not taking a judgmental approach. There are moments in this documentary where it gets uncomfortable. Just the way that some of it goes, some of the interactions between these people, but it's not importantly, it's not making fun of these people. It is not casting them in a light like, look at these people, look at these people. It is just these two people who happen to have this rabid success obsession. I almost said succession. They have this rabid obsession, and are have their own unique kind of personality. And this Jeff is far more upbeat. He is far more talkative. Kelly is far more quiet, somewhat secluded. There's like one interaction in the film between the two of them when they actually, meet up at one point. And it gets a little uncomfortable in terms of just these two personalities clashing and where it goes to. And I should also mention that this is available on Blu-ray. I didn't watch the Blu-ray of this, but this does have some of the bonus features on here, which includes two commentary tracks from Jeff and Kelly, as well as the director, updated short documentaries, both on Jeff and Kelly, and some other features with them, including Kelly's poetry, Kelly's impressions, and I got to give a shout out to Durkee, good guy Durkee. I posted about that I'd watched this on my letterboxd, and he was kind enough to point me in the right direction of a couple of videos on YouTube that may be on the Blu-ray. I don't know, but were updates with Jeff and Kelly. So, Durkee, I'm gonna grab the Sprite. I'm gonna raise it to you, and if you're listening, grab your glass, or if you don't have a glass, grab your cup. If you don't have a cup, then just grab it in spirit, man. Raise your glasses to Durkee, man. I'm gonna have this sip of this on the microphone. Durkee's a good guy. I always enjoy hearing from him. Very smart, very knowledgeable man. We thank you, Durkee, for your film knowledge, and we look forward to talking to you more about it in the future. But I think we're alone now. Another good documentary. It goes by pretty fast, depending on how you take it, because there are just some moments that you could go, "Oh boy, this is a little uncomfortable." But it's a very fascinating documentary about two fascinating people. I'd be very interested to hear what Tiffany had to say about this documentary. Curiously enough, there I am not at the. I'm not. I'm muting my telephone. Okay, good stuff, man. Good stuff. And the last one, on a bit more of a lighthearted note, from sexual abuse to stalkers, we have something far more lighthearted. A new documentary on Amazon Prime. This was at 97 minutes, all about the Tom Green legacy. This is the Tom Green documentary. Tom Green, famous Canadian comedian. This documentary goes over his rise, not quite his fall, but definitely some bumps in the road in the mid 2000s or so. The documentary is interesting because Tom Green is somebody who I've known solely through other mediums, but his actual Tom Green show I've been unfamiliar with. I know about it, so they play a lot of clips from the show, and just him doing these really ridiculous kind of goofy antics, a lot of man on the street stuff, talking about his heavy inspiration from David Letterman, and his influence and love of David Letterman plays a big part in the story and in the arc of it. And it's incredibly inspiring if you watch it. This guy who, I forgot who it was who said it in the documentary. I think it was one of the podcasters was talking about people now talking about, oh, I can't make a movie, I can't do this and can't do that. But it's like, man, you got your telephone, you got all these means to make any kind of art that you want. Meanwhile, Tom Green in the '90s, it's a lot harder to, do a lot of video stuff then, really get it out there, get it seen. I think it's part talent, part luck, part persistence. It's wild to watch just how popular this was. I mean, for how ridiculous and how silly it was, and just how over the top it was. I mean. And it's great watching because me, who's unfamiliar with the show itself, I knew it was like I guess a skit show or something. I mean, it was like a part talk show, part skits, or maybe that was later. I'm not actually sure. See, this is how out of the know I am, but it was great seeing some of these skits where he's like messing with his parents, and there's a great one of the gags is actually making me laugh, which I'm sure somebody could probably say, "Oh, that's a famous gag," but I was unfamiliar with was the him turning his dad into the slutmobile car actually gave me a laugh because of just how ridiculous it was, and it's pretty crazy. Some of the stuff he's doing with dead animals, it's kind of insane that would even that no one was like, hey, wait a minute, man, what are we doing? And it actually kind of reminds me of another documentary. What was it called? Beauty Day? Was that the one it was called, man? I gotta look that up. I think it was called, yes, that's right, Beauty Day, and that was it was an okay documentary, but that was as well. Um, Actually, yeah, funnily enough, kind of ties into this. You have this guy from Canada as well, who was before Tom Green, doing these ridiculous kind of live action or these like ridiculous stunts on this public access TV, and he gets in trouble at one point because he's messing with animals, but he's not hurting them or anything. He's just like it's just he's using them for like one of his skits that's like maybe being a little rough with them, but nothing like bad. But meanwhile, Tom, what the examples they show in this film are just insane of just how much he got away with. Sort of just this DIY sort of attitude of just being completely ridiculous and completely silly. It definitely is a documentary made for Tom Green fans. I think that it is as equal parts a look into the life of Tom Green of his career as it is a very loving look at this era. I mean, there are some bumps, but one of the things I think a little disappointed in is that because there is a lot of information to go over, a lot of big things to go over with. I think I would have been a bit more interested to learn about maybe some of the complications that went on when they were making the show. Maybe if some like some of the skits they did, maybe if they went wrong and they got in trouble or anything like that. I mean, even if nothing happened, just kind of acknowledging it. I mean, they mentioned a little bit how maybe there's like one where his mom was really mad at him, or his co-host, who I think he burnt his shirt or something like that. They didn't want him to, something like that. But I mean, these are just kind of moot points because it is so entertaining and it is so loving the way that I mean, especially if you are a Tom Green fan, this is definitely going to be probably not a lot of information you don't already know, but still a good look into that. And of course, it goes into his post Tom Green show career, which is appearing in films like Road Trip and Stealing Harvard, and then they talked some about Freddy Got Fingered, about how it did it really wasn't received well when it came out, but it's kind of become this cult film. I think you could have done a documentary just about that, just kind of about the production, about the making of that film. How just sort of the free reign that he was given to make this completely ridiculous film. And I think that's one of the things that really stands out about Freddy Got Fingered is that because it's not just that it's ridiculous, but it's just so baffling. Some of the just extreme kind of goofiness that there is. Just some of the gags that are in the film go above just being gross out or just being weird. It's like it makes you scratch your head and maybe you laugh, maybe you don't, but it's incredibly memorable, and that's I think a big part of maybe its long lasting power is that you can remember certain scenes that you're just like what is he doing here? And I mean it's one of my favorite films, but it's so subjective, and it's one of these where you can't blame someone for not liking any comedy, but this one in particular because it's so out there and it's so goofy and extreme. But I find myself just constantly quoting it, whenever I watch it, which isn't often, but when I do, I'm in fits of laughter, and that's great, man. It goes into later his career about his later shows, and now he does like stand-up comedy. I think he was like doing it before, but now I know he like does a lot more touring now. But it's a fun documentary, man. It's one that I don't think it's a great documentary or anything, but I mean, if you're a fan of this, for one, of Tom Green, or of this era of MTV, or of comedy, really, then it is worth watching. And it's interesting, kind of right now, we're getting a lot of these documentaries or films that are about the 90s into the 2000s. A decade ago it was all about the 80s, and we had like all these movies that were in the 80s, Stranger Things and all that. And I feel like now we've kind of finally shifted to the 90s. We've had stuff like we had the Jerry Springer documentary that was on Netflix. The Girls Gone Wild documentary that was on Peacock. The movie Y2K, of course, in 1999, and then the film Dee Dee, which is a little later, actually 2007, 2008. Actually, no, I'm sorry, it had to be 2008 because I watched Superbad at one point. Um, or wait, was that 2007? I think it was 2007. My bad. But yeah, but I'm saying that era is that now I feel like we're getting to that point where the 80s, when it was in the 90s, it was about the 70s. When it was in the 70s, it was about the 50s, and now we're all about the 90s. And kind of this kind of look back into films, or like pop culture of that time. I'm sure we'll get a movie about some famous 90s band, or maybe they'll make like a grunge movie or something. Or I mean, I guess we also had the what was it called, the Tommy Lee Pamela Anderson show. What was it? It was called Pam and Tommy, or oh gosh, what the hell was it called? I can't remember what it was called. And with Sebastian Stan and Lily. Ooh, I'm forgetting her last name. I do apologize for that. Lily something. I'm not going to look it up right now, but yeah, it's interesting to kind of look back on that, see kind of the wave of nostalgia, or the wave of kind of time periods that it goes. So I'm sure, in 10, 20 years, we'll look back on the 2010s, and we'll go, oh my gosh, man, remember the 2010s? Remember when, man, what a, remember, man, you got the PS4? Oh man, that was crazy. Remember you got I don't know. I'm trying to think of I just lived through the 2010s. I can't remember, big kind of pop culture events, man. But oh well. But yeah, man. I don't talk about enough documentaries. At least I'm always interested in talking about documentaries because I find them so fascinating. I find the most long lasting, some of those long lasting films you can watch, and I love documentaries, man. So give them a watch. Um, Awful Normal. I think We're Alone Now, and this is the Tom Green documentary. I should also say I watched Awful Normal and I think We're Alone Now both on Tubi, and then I watched This is the Tom Green documentary on Amazon Prime. So all readily streamable. Should you be interested? And I thought I had another documentary to talk about. I don't have enough time to talk about another documentary, but I thought I watched something fairly recently, but I guess not, now that I'm looking at it. I mean, I've seen some documentaries of recent, but nothing I need to really discuss. Documentaries that maybe. Oh, you know what? I was going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about it, but I guess I'll briefly mention. I did also watch The Dog from 2013, which is also very good. Well, I should say it's good. It's maybe not very good. It's good. It's a solid documentary, an hour 41 about the real life case of John. What I don't remember how to say his last name, and I'm not gonna try. But basically, the real life um, version of Pacino's character in Dog Day Afternoon. I don't have as much to say about it. Good documentary, but I remember I watched these fairly close to each other, and I thought I would bring that up. So that is all I have to say. Thank you for listening. It's a beautiful night to get the job done. So let's get the job done. Okay, thank you all for listening. God bless, and until next time.